Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And what we're going to do is pre-tape the show, which is exactly what we're doing, and it'll air next Monday on MNN1, and we want to thank Manhattan Neighborhood Network and EVT Educational Productions for being good enough to let us do all this. So by the time this airs, it'll be 1 week, just about, after the second presidential debate, right? So I know you tried to watch it before you fell asleep. What was your impression?
Well, my impression was that I saw two idiots up there. I mean, it was like a kindergarten class, two kids fighting. Neither one of them covered any substance that I could see. No, as you say, I was in and out of it, but it just seems so ridiculous to me. Well, she's countering his attacks, his personal attacks, and he's going after her. He's going after her husband, who's not even running. I mean, it just didn't make any sense to me. I was sorry to see it. Well, and I'm sorry that our political parties have deteriorated to this.
Well, I think you're falling into the trap of letting Donald Trump's kindergarten actions and kindergarten name calling rub itself off on Hillary Clinton.
That's what it seems like. I mean, she's jumping into his.
Well, no, I don't think she's jumping into it. I think she's basically trying to defend some standard of what decorum could and should be, and it kind of, as Pearl Duncan once said, more than once to me, as this campaign, Donald Trump uses a kindergarten technique. What you throw at me, I throw back at you. Right. It sticks on you like glue. Right, okay, yes. So yeah, there tends to be a very small-minded, childish exchange. But bottom line, I don't want to be that partisan that I'm sitting here defending Hillary Clinton to the death, which I'm not. But I think you just can't let Donald Trump get away with lies, bombast, bullying, and that type behavior. So by default, she has to respond in some way, shape, or form. I thought she actually, as she used that Michelle Obama quote, when they go low, we go high. Right. And that basically is what I think she has tried to do all along, and definitely tried to do in that debate. And I do not want us to spend much time on that debate.
No, I think she did maintain an element of decorum, but she still had to counter this guy.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it was going to be crazy because of the scandal that had broken before the debate came up anyway. So, but that's still going to be all over the news by the time this airs, because there's all kinds of stuff about what happens when the tapes from The Apprentice shows up. There have been a ton of headlines about people giving interviews. You can't find the tapes, but guess what? I worked on the show, and I heard that man say such horrendous
now, aren't they? Yeah,
it's like there's nothing else that's hitting the airwaves in this thing, just because this man's lifestyle has been so gutter, his behavior has been so terrible, that all the stuff is sitting out there waiting to explode.
Right.
So that's what people are digging for, and that's what people are talking about.
And the media is pushing it because it sells papers.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bottom line is he pushed the media's buttons for 15 months, okay? So now he doesn't want to push the media's button, but guess what? So, it's basically, you're right. We've talked about that on Media Watch more than once. The fact that, hey, you don't have to let this guy drive the narrative. But you know what? Because he sells papers, because he gets eyeballs, because he gets
and shame
viewers.
On the press.
Yeah, well, yeah, we beat up on them, but here we are saying let's at least put this thing to bed real quick and don't go on to something else. But we've already spent at least 4 minutes talking about it.
Yes,
So-
he's still
so-
getting his time on the air.
Yeah. But there are a number of related stories, because what hasn't come up in pretty much any of these, at least the 2 presidential debates that I partly watch and totally watch, is anything on education, anything on
Sure.
the criminal justice system, except for when Donald Trump says we have lost respect for law and order and we need to bring back stop and frisk. Notice we want to talk about what didn't come up, but it came up in the negative way, because one of the ongoing issues that we talk about all the time on Media Watch is this continuing assault on black civilians, male and female, by police departments across the country. And yes, there are people who are quick to say it's not all policemen. And I agree, it's not all policemen or all police women. I disagree with the fact that it should not be discussed because we're painting the good cops with the brush of the bad cops. I'll say it again, like we've said it before. Where are the good cops when it comes time to blow the whistle on the bad cops? Why is it these guys never seem to get any trials, any arrests, the Oklahoma police officer, the female cop in Oklahoma, she was indicted.
Right.
She was charged and probably will be tried. But I noticed just the other day, I don't know if you saw this.
The Oklahoma cop, that was
Yes.
also on tape. I mean,
I understand
was
that, but
visible. You could see that.
But the
There's no
big
denying
defense
it by-
initially was
by
she was
anyone.
totally stressed out because
Well, then she
he
shouldn't have
looked
been on the job.
He looked like he was totally discombobulated and was not listening to commands. The latest finding by the quote coroner's office, toxicology, he was replete with PCP in his system. That's the latest headline.
Okay.
So I guess it took 3 weeks to get that toxicology report.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you that unless those folk can get that body and do their own autopsy, that's going to be the official line.
Right.
And so they're already laying the groundwork for whatever defense she's going to be putting. So there'll be another case of, okay, somebody did get charged, but let's see what happens when prosecution comes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you wanted to backtrack and revisit in line with these killings, shootings. I don't want to say assassination unless I go back to Fred Hampton's assassination by the Chicago State
please.
Police. But that wasn't assassination.
That was an
and
assassination.
they documented
That
it,
was
so
a
we can say that. But,
clear
but
assassination.
these shootings under questionable circumstances, we won't go so far as to call them assassinations, except maybe an attempted assassination when that guy shot that man in the back while he was running away in his shooter's pose. So, but the UN report that we did talk about in the previous show, you said you wanted to backtrack.
Well, I'd like to know more about it because I totally slept that.
All right. We won't, because we did it on the last show. We'll sort of quickly recap. The bottom line was, in September of 2015, I believe the December 12 movement went to the United Nations and just basically said, we need you to investigate the United States of America for all kinds of human rights abuses. They have just totally lost their minds, etc. That was the gist of their complaint. And as a result, the UN body that's assigned to look into these things, especially the body that's assigned to people of African descent, is such a body in the UN. They did their research, and I guess they did a year, and I don't know whether it was triggered by the December 12 movement request or not. I'm just connecting dots. And the middle of September, maybe the third week in this September, they came out with a report basically saying, yeah, it looks like maybe there has been terrorism. It looks like there has been serious violations of human rights by the United States itself on the persons of black people in this country. And it's been going on for, though these number of
That's
hundreds of years.
major news. How come I didn't
No,
read
it
that
was-
anywhere?
it-
I mean, you know, I
Well,
don't
it
read
did-
everything,
It
but
didn't hit big headlines in front page headlines, but I believe a Washington Post carried one of the stories. I know Joy Elliott fired an email off to me. Pearl Duncan actually had a post on Facebook, and there were a number of comments and discussions on that report. So it did get fairly decent play on social media in my Facebook circles and my feed, and Joy found it in some inbox and came through her inbox into my inbox emails. It means it was getting publications.
but it didn't hit the mainstream media, not in a big way, and it's big news.
It all depends on who your assignment editors, who your managing editors are, who your whomever are. You know, there are these bureaucracy levels of who says what gets where on what page in a newspaper.
I know. I spent a long time in the business, which is
and we
why
know
I'm no
that
longer in the business.
those type stories don't really hit network television broadcasts very often. They may hit print organs a lot
occasionally,
faster than they hit
yeah.
broadcast television. Because guess what? It's a report. And then there's no visual, unless you go back and dig up historical vision and then build a real story, which you and I could do quite easily. Were we still there, but we're not there, and there may not be people who look like us there at these networks anymore. So, but in any event, what they did was they likened these present 2016, 2015, 2014 shootings of blacks by armed policemen with badges as akin to the terrorism that was laid on black people in the 19th century when there were shooting and lynching and people like the KKK and the Knights of the White Camellia. So what they're saying is, in that report, this country needs to clean up its act. It owes black people all kinds of stuff, including reparations for how they've been treated. That was the gist of the UN report.
I wonder what's going to come of it.
Well, you know, all they can do is issue a report.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering if
They issue a lot of reports. The receiving end of the report, the various countries, Soviets don't pay any attention to it. The Israelis don't pay any attention to it. Not too many countries on the globe pay attention to UN reports.
UN says, yeah.
So I'm not expecting any major, we must take note of this and do something about it to come out of the United States
Well, it's
government.
a shame because then basically the report's not telling us or affecting any change. It's not telling us anything that we didn't already know.
Well, that black people didn't already know.
Right.
Okay. Now, the rest of the world might not have been aware of this, and a number of white people in the country might not have been willingly aware of it, but this report, if it's disseminated and read and talked about, might open a few eyes.
Well,
Who knows?
One can only hope.
Yeah, one can only hope. So, the other issue, like I said, that didn't come up in those debates were, of course, education. Now, both these candidates have, quote, plans for education. I know Hillary Clinton took a leaf from Bernie Sanders' playbook and was talking about free college education for all, or some form of that. I haven't really gone to her website to read the exact plan, but the college education part of it for me is like the back end of the giant Titanic or tanker or whatever that you're trying to steer, because what you're doing to these young people in the lower grades determines on whether or not they're going to get into anybody's college. So you were doing a little reading on the Alan Singer Huffington Post blog on his latest update on what the charter school battle is.
Right.
Do you want to share that with our?
Well, the thing that impressed me the most, and by impressed I don't necessarily mean in a good way, was all these hedge funds that are pumping money into this.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the white rich establishment is putting money into these charter schools. It's like they're trying to eliminate public schools.
Well, yeah,
basically,
that's been the, that's been the plan.
But now you see, public schools were started originally for black people.
Well, you're going back to the colonial period when the African free schools
the
were
African free
founded
school,
in New
which
York,
became the New
and
York
that became the basis for the New
public
York City
school.
public schools. Yes, we know
But
that
there-
history, but it's good to
the
remind
st-
people.
The standards for charter schools raised the bar higher and higher, making it very exclusive.
No. They don't raise the educational bar. They don't raise the
For
educational standard.
admittance.
No.
They
What
don't
they
go-
do
am I
is
misunderstanding
no.
something?
No, here's what they do. They pick and choose. We've done
Pick
a
and
few of
choose.
these- We've
And
done a
who
few
do
of
they, who
these.
do they pick and choose?
Well, quote, there's a lottery now. You understand, in New York City. We can only speak for New York City folk because we have not been studying how the charters work around the country. They may work the same way with the lottery, they may not. But within
In New
certain
York,
states,
New York it's a lottery.
there's some kind of lottery system, and people have to draw straws or pick lots or hope to be called or whatever to make some of these charter school selections. So, but for me, it's not the fact that they're even in that, it's that these charter schools keep siphoning off resources and dollars
From the
that
public
the public
schools,
schools need
Yeah,
to
no,
educate the full panoply of our students. I mean, the public schools can't pick and choose who they take into their student body.
course not.
They don't do, as Alan Singer has been known to say, rig lotteries, or even if they're not rigged, if they don't like the students, they harass them so they're out. Because he was on our show talking about, who was it, the Success Academies. Yes, I don't know if you saw that show.
No, I did not.
Where the leader, Eva Moskowitz, and yeah, that's the name, was
Moskowitz, no,
doing
no.
all kinds of, as Dr. Singer phrased it, serious leanings on certain parents over and over again, so that eventually they ended up being discouraged and pulled their students out of the school. We had him here, he talked about that. But every time I go into this charter school thing, I go back to the fact that there have been serious studies done by more than one group, but I remember the study that Stanford University did. It's probably about 4 years ago now. Basically, they just across the country checked on the educational success rates of charter schools versus public schools. And by and large, their findings were some charter schools do excellently. Some public schools do excellently. Some charter schools fail miserably. Some public schools fail miserably. Across the board, there is no evidence that charter school education does a better job for any student than the public school education. That was the Stanford University study. I'm summarizing it in a nutshell. And you notice they qualified. Some charter schools do extremely well. Some public schools do extremely well. But if you just level the playing field, take the mean, and study it, good, bad, poor, lump it, they come out pretty much the same.
So then why charter schools?
Because there's a propaganda, well, you said it earlier. You talked about hedge fund people
Yes.
pumping all kinds of money into the charter school. Who makes the most money from charter? I know Dr. Singh was
people who
talking
own
about, well, we did a show where we talked about how much money the CEOs of these charter schools were making, as opposed to what a public school principal might be
makes,
making,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And so who stands to gain? Who's making the money? Basically, Dr. Singer has written any number of blogs talking about the dollars that for-profit charter schools are making off the backs of inner-city school children, okay? And he talks hand in glove with that is the testing service people. What the hell is their name? Normally, yes. But we'll revisit that, folk. But these testing people basically are in it just for the money, not to educate the kids. And rather than call the wrong organization and leave myself open for poor journalism, I will tell you, can't quite remember the name, won't give it to you, and won't try to guess. But every time I discuss this issue, I say we know that there are any number of school intervention methods that have been known to work. One of which we did was the Coma Process, which was the thing that James Comer did with the Yale Child Study Center. We know that there's a history of that being successful, and it's successful in public schools, not in a high-end charter school. And it's successful because it's geared toward the development of the total child, not just teaching them to read, write, and pass exams.
There was a heavy parental involvement component to that as
community, home,
parental,
and school working
school
together. And so, and because it's a model that actually involves everyone, it's a collaborative model, and it actually works.
And it works, and we've seen it work.
We've documented it. So when they keep pushing charter schools and talking about, oh, we need to give these parents more choice, I said, no, you need to give these parents more help, more collaborative effort, and people who understand the development of children, not talking about passing standardized tests, but developing the total child in a round, holistic manner. So, yeah, I don't want to get on a soapbox, but I guess we're going to have to bring some educators back on, Dr. Singer and some other folk, and revisit the charter school versus the public school. One of the individuals we're actually trying to get to actually let us know whether they think it's something for them to take a look at is the public advocate, Letitia James. We've reached out to her because there are a number of issues that are going on in the city that we think a public advocate might be interested in, should be looking into. And so we're waiting to hear back on whether or not the public advocate will want to come on and talk to us about that issue and a couple of other issues that we've mentioned. So, you know, there was in the debate, as much as I
I know you. In the debate.
The post-debate, let's put it this way, and this gets to the heart of what we've been talking about as people interested in issues dealing with people of color, how it impacts people of color. Donald Trump basically decided that because that tape had been exposed,
his locker room talk tape,
right. He would take the just locker room banter talk about, but he also decided he'd just take the low road and try to dig up every peccadillo, every bad thing that Bill Clinton ever did. And so he brought all these women that had accused former President Clinton to the debate, tried to seat them in his family box. And the debate people said, no, they're not your family, just don't try that. And so that didn't work.
But he held a press conference with them.
Yeah, well, he sandbagged the news reporters about, I'm going to show you something, and then he brought them into a room with these women sit down and tried to have the press conference. That's how he did it.
Yeah, okay.
The guy's, I hate to say it, but the guy is just double dealing, nefarious, just no integrity. Everything he does has some sleaze factor to it.
I mean, tell me how you really feel.
No, I'm telling you exactly how I feel, because the man does what he does. If he didn't do it, I couldn't say he did it, but he did it.
Absolutely. I understand.
I'm not telling any tale. I mean,
you're preaching to the choir.
He'll stand up there and go, "Oh wait, no, I didn't do that." I'm surprised he didn't come back and say that. Like you say, "Oh, I didn't say that."
Yeah. Well, he didn't do that during the debate. He had just said something.
But I don't want to get off my track, because we only got about three and a half minutes left.
Oh.
Now he's saying post-debate, because people beat up on him for trying to do that sleazeball thing by accusing the president or bringing up all that stuff. And so when he got beat up on it for it, and then his own party beat up on him, he says, "Oh, well, finally the shackles have come off.
No.
I am now freed," and blah, blah. Now, you see, for somebody like me, for somebody like you, when we dig into the history of what slavery and enslaved people have had to come out of in this country, for this orange-haired monster to start equating himself to having been shackled and to having been enslaved, that for me is as big an affront as him calling John McCain a coward and maligning Captain Khan's service when he lost it. I mean, this guy has no clue about what the historical context of anything he says means. He has no clue about what's integrity or decorum or I don't know. You tell me. The guy leaves me at a loss for words.
He has no conscience. He has doesn't have anything that generally restrains a human being.
This bit about talking about him being unshackled really, really gets to me.
I see that.
That this is not. I mean,
when I heard that, I was wondering, well, who's
where
where are you going to go from here?
Where was he enslaved? Who had him in chains? What deck of what ship was he under? For never mind. It's not funny, and it makes me truly his sexual assault, whether he wants to consider it sexual assault, is just beyond the pale. We've been saying this on Media Watch for a long time. The fact that this man is even on somebody's ticket as a presidential candidate makes me feel that this country has totally lost not just its mind, but its soul. This means this is a soulless country when somebody like that can be the head of a ticket. I mean, he talks, somebody was trying to defend him saying, man's not elected to be a role model. He's elected to do his job. Did you hear that?
I heard that.
So his surrogates are saying, yeah, it's okay to be a sexual assaulter. Oh, yeah, there have been sexual assaulters in the White House before. Yeah, well, if we knew there were sexual assaulters, we probably wouldn't have put them in. Okay?
Right.
So, in any event, this has been more of commentary and anger-related exchange. But Raymond, we got 40 seconds. Is there anything we need to tell our viewers to look out for? Or
to look out for?
Register
and vote.
Go out to vote.
Even though New York is not a swing state.
Drag people out to vote.
Go out and vote.
Call your relatives all over the country and make sure they register and vote.
Absolutely.
This has been Media Watch. Brought to you by EVT Educational Productions, and M&N. I'm Eric Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And we will catch you the next time.